Last week, we looked at the tale of two masons to try and understand why it is important for your teams to have sufficient context around what they're doing. In today's video, we will look at two tools that you could use to drive alignment around your product vision and strategy and your tactical day to day product development. The problem with the crisp product vision and strategy is that it can be very abstract. And if you don't have all the context around it, it is very difficult for somebody to be able to relate to it. And as a result of that, it can be very uninspiring. And in general, human beings connect to emotions and stories. In my experience, a fantastic technique to bring to life your product vision and strategy is the usage of personas and the art of storytelling. As a first step, you want to identify all the key personas who would be associated with your product. These would include things like, the main user of the product, the buyer, the decision maker, and any other influencers who might be there in the picture. And you want to flesh out each of these personas. You want to try and understand their demographics in terms of how old they typically are, where they live, what their background is, what's their family status, what's their educational background, and so on. And the next is you want to try and understand their motivation, their goals, their typical day in terms of what they do on a typical day, and also their fears and their frustrations. If you're working with your marketing teams on fleshing out these personas, they might even include other elements such as the other brands that these personas associate themselves with, which are the websites that they visit, and where these personas would typically hang out. Ideally, you want to give each of these personas a name and a face so that your teams can actually visualize this person. So, for example, if you're working on a product that will give data to a farmer, which will help them better time their harvests, you want to use the picture of a farmer and give him a name like, let's say, Hanumantappa. Right? That's the name of our gardener. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that all Hanumantappas out there are farmers or gardeners, but you want to try and give a representative name so that people can actually relate to this person. The next step is to bring to life the identified personas using a story. And when you're looking at a story, it needs to have three key elements. The first of which are the main characters, now which in this case would be your personas. And you want to bring them to life. You want to talk about their motivations, where they live, and weave a story around all of that. Talk about what their everyday life looks like. And once you have established that, you need to bring in the second element of the story, which is the villain. In this case, the villain would be the problem that your personas are facing. And you want to talk about the problem and how the problem is preventing your hero, which is your main user, from reaching their goal. At this stage, you want to bring in the third element of a good story, which is the resolution. In this case, that would be the product or the solution that you're offering. And you also want to talk about how the solution will help the hero overcome their problem, and what sort of emotions that the usage of the product is likely to evoke in the hero. And you also want to talk about the strategic themes for your product, and how these themes would help the hero in overcoming the problem. Once done, you want to give the story a nice, short, catchy title, and so that you can refer to this title often, and keep refreshing people's memory with that title. And you also want to consider putting up posters around your office with the picture of the persona, and referencing the key elements of the story, so that people in your team are constantly made aware of the strategy, and they are aware of what they're doing. And the other advantage is having a face and a name around the office would continuously remind people that they're solving problems for a real person, which helps with team motivation, and it also brings in empathy for the users. Bottom line, make your product vision and strategy relatable. Bring in emotions, bring in stories, make it human so that people can connect to it. A fantastic tool to drive alignment around your day-to-day product developments is the usage of user stories. I'm sure all product managers out there would be familiar with the user story, with the format. As a user, I want something so that I can achieve something. Now, the beauty of this format is that it succinctly captures the who, the what, and the why. For example, if you're running a juice shop, a fresh juice shop, the your primary user story would be, as a customer walking into the juice shop, I want a chilled fresh lime soda so that I can quench my thirst. But I've found two issues with this user story format. The first is that very often people don't want to give it enough thought, and they end up with stories like, as a user, I want a fresh lime soda so that I can drink it. Now, that's a case of someone using the tool but not using it correctly. Because to effectively use the tool, you really have to understand the user's problem and have the discipline to articulate it. Now, in this case, when you're saying I want a fresh lime soda that I can drink it, you're not really talking about the user's problem, which is actually thirst and the need to quench the thirst. The second issue I have with the user story format is the order of the three things, right? You start with the who, the what, and the why. And in this, the why comes last. And often by the time people reach the why, they don't want to give it much thought. I've captured the what, let's just go with it. It would have been fantastic if the order was who, why, and what. So something like, as a person walking into a juice store, in order to quench my thirst, I would like a chilled fresh lime soda. That puts the focus on the user and their needs before you bring in the solution element. But that said, the user story is a very powerful tool if used correctly. If you're working on communicating your product vision and strategy to your teams and would like to bounce off ideas on how to craft a story, do give me a shout. I always love working on a good story. And if you like this video, do give it a like. Thank you for watching.